Oh, there. Now I'm unmuted. Hey, everyone at Singdaptive singers. So glad you're here for Singdaptive Live today. Hoping you really enjoy the time towards the end of summer here for us on the Northern Hemisphere. And we're still enjoying the sun, which is great. And we always like coming together for these Singdaptive Lives that we have. And the focus over the summer for the past two has been kind of songwriting, and today is no different with our guests today. So we're really excited, still focusing on songs and things like that. And I want to remind you that there is a chance to ask questions towards the end, and you can plug those in at the beginning on the chat if you want. You can put in questions, or you can think of questions during it, and we'll try to respond for some things as we go, but we'll get to those questions at the end for sure. And some of you have sent questions in advance, and that's great as well. So the topic today is a cool one, I think, for a lot of people, because almost every singer who's been on Singdaptive, when we ask them of their interest in songwriting, basically everyone says at some point they're interested in songwriting or they are songwriting. But for a lot of us singers, or a lot of even musicians, it's what they want to do, or the ideas that they have are melodies and their lyrics. That's often where it starts. And for some, that's all we do. And our guests today have like a massive amount of experience doing just that. So today on our session, we're going to have two instructors and also great, fantastic performers and songwriters. So first, I'm going to introduce and bring in Katherine Ellis, who's here beside me. Katherine Ellis is an instructor on our platform, and she is an incredible performer and vocalist. I first saw her, actually, Greg, one of our other founders, introduced me to her through her performance, the live performance of the song from Gravity, where she's singing in front of just a gorgeous orchestra in a gorgeous setting with a gorgeous dress, singing a gorgeous song with a gorgeous voice. Guess what? It was gorgeous. But she's also a topline writer, which we're going to talk a bit today about what that is, and has done tons of songwriting. So Katherine, thanks so much for being on today. It's great to have you. And then I also want to introduce you to Emily Braden, another instructor on Singdaptive, who I've gotten to know for years in our hometown. She came up here to Canada from the States as an aspiring jazz singer, and I got to do sound for vocal groups that she was in and for her, and some recording, and just got to watch her kind of sail into her vocal and songwriting career, now living in New York. And by the way, Katherine's in the UK, so we're like totally spread across the world today, which is kind of exciting. We like that. But Emily has done some fantastic things and fantastic performances, and is certainly known, in certainly my heart, of going to an Emily performance is very much you get to see somebody use their voice and their talents in ways you just don't expect. And that's been always a fantastic thing about getting to hear her performances. So thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to be here.
It is good to have you here, kind of thing. So, and it's also nice that it's like we're at a time in the world where we could do this in person, even though we're not. So somehow that makes me feel even less isolated. So it's
well, we could, but it would involve two people having to fly.
Yeah, it's just I just did my first kind of long flight. Kath and I, we just did our first long flight that we have done since COVID. We flew to the UK, and it had been so long, like I didn't even remember what a plane looked like. Turns out they're not big inside. So, but it was still great to be flying again. So
yeah.
Well, I want to get things, like I mentioned, you saw what the topic was in advance, and I want to get into it. And the way we're doing this is with some series of questions, some of them that you've seen in advance, and maybe there'll be some that you haven't, kind of thing. And to kind of set things off, to get people a sense of who you are, is just, if you can remember, when did you first know you wanted to write a song? And that could have been just a melody or a song. And how long after that did you actually write that song or write your first song? Emily, do you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely. So I was one of those, like many vocalists. I was writing little melodies when I was a kid, just hilarious little songs that luckily we have some recordings of, which is fun. But as an adult, I think I probably, I sort of cut my teeth and learned how to sing through jazz standards but there was something in me. I've always been a writer of poetry and all of that. So it was probably like right out of college that right out of high school, actually, that I started thinking about like, what do I have to say? What do I want to say? And I would say probably 3 years after high school is when I wrote my first song.
Okay. 3 years after high
Similar
school.
for me. I was always singing and writing poems and what have you. But I think as a teenager, I joined my first band, and I think it took us months to write half a song. I don't really know what it was about. But yeah, in my late teens, early 20s, I had some more serious bands in Brighton in the south of England where I used to live. And we started writing, you know, trying to get record deals and be world famous pop stars. But I think when I really started writing seriously was probably about 20 years ago, having had a pretty big hit as a writer and receiving my first royalty check and thinking, okay, I'll write some more of these.
Motivation.
It's interesting. So like it's interesting, like the motivation can happen like just as a kid, these melodies you have in your head, but it can also be a paycheck. I mean, a lot of creative endeavors are accelerated when we see the kind of the reward we get for them.
Well, I've got two boys. They're now 19 and 22. And, you know, I made a promise to myself at 19 that I would never earn money from anything other than music. And so in order to keep that going, I've got to make a living. You know, I live in London. We've got a house in London. You know, it was like, what do I have to do? So when my youngest was born, I'd had this hit Dreaming with the Rough Driver. So I was touring, going to Ibiza because it was a big Ibiza song, and then signed a big publishing deal off the back of that, and just sort of sat at home in my glasses and pajamas, just churning out top lines. And for those of you that don't know, a top line is the melody and the lyric. So I bought a studio, learned how to use it. So yeah, so it was like, how can I have it all? How can I have my family and my career and not have to get a proper job?
Oh, man, I mean, it's funny. Like a lot of people make that decision, but when somebody makes it for music, it just, you know, as fellow musicians or people love musicians, you just love it because it's such a hard decision to make. And I know, Emily, you've made those decisions in your life as well. Even like moving to New York was a jumping in the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, I haven't been financially rewarded for that choice, but yeah, it was, you know, and I was just going to say, when you're talking about the rewards sort of feed the desire to write my own songs. And I feel like that also happened for me just in seeing how both myself and the audience responds to singing original music versus, and it's different. I wouldn't put one above the other, but definitely that energy of bringing something new to a stage and sharing from a really personal individual place with an audience had motivated me to continue to write original music and to continue to try to express myself that way while singing covers and singing jazz standards and all that. But it's something different when it comes from you. It really is.
I think definitely as an audience member, it can feel different. Even if you find out after the fact, for me, it can sometimes change your kind of memory and your thought process of the song. Let's get into the kind of the writing side a bit and kind of onto something that Katherine, you mentioned about top line writing. Let's just get into this a bit. So do you write music and chords to your songs or just melodies and lyrics? And what's unique about, you know, the way that you tend to do it? Katherine, let's go you first, because you started to talk about the top line.
Well, I don't play an instrument, but having said that, I do play the vocal. So that I consider that to be an instrument, but I don't play an instrument with chords. I actually do now play bad ukulele, which I taught myself to do in the pandemic. But I mainly work in house music and dance music. So the way that I write generally is that I get sent backing tracks, which I load up in my studio, and then I just kind of jam over the top of them. This is my personal method. I tend to come up with the melodies sort of first and a theme and maybe a title. But I just kind of, it's that dance as if nobody's watching. Well, nobody is watching because I'm on my own. So I just kind of jam and I record everything that I do. And then I listen back to it and I see what I've got and I pick out the bits I like and I just develop the ideas from there. So, but when I write the melodies. If I'm writing with other people, with musicians, I do hear the chords. When I'm singing a melody, I kind of know what I want to hear behind them.
Yeah, so it's there.
Yeah,
You're just not the one.
hear the whole thing. I just don't play an instrument.
And how about you, Emily?
So for me, you asked, the question is melodies and lyrics, or and chords. So I co-write as well, and I'm like basic level piano, so I can read music and I can play really basic chords. And then through the pandemic, started playing guitar and writing a little bit with the guitar, which I think is a great writing instrument. But I co-write as well. So for me, it's mostly melody and lyric, although I've co-written in very different ways. Sometimes I'm only writing the lyrics. Sometimes I'm bringing 80% of the tune formed, and then my co-writer Misha Piatigorsky, for the most part, he'll like harmonically lift that because he's a brilliant composer. So it's really like, in my life, it's one of the few areas that I've truly collaborated with someone else, and it's not a black and white way. It's not I do this, they do that. Sometimes, sometimes it's created together spontaneously. So there's been a lot of different ways that I've written a song, that a song has come to be. Sometimes it was, 90% fully formed by me before I took it to someone else. Sometimes it's like, I just have this little idea that I want to explore, and it goes from there.
I think so often as songwriters, and I know songwriters like this, it can be even me as a kid, when I used to actually sit down on keyboards and try to write songs, I wanted to do everything by myself because I was too shy to share with anyone, not recognizing that the collaboration is where things can come out. And I think what can sometimes happen is that I didn't feel like I had necessarily permission to write lyrics or melody. I didn't even realize that the music I had melody in it. You're putting loops in there and drums and doing this symphonic stuff or whatever it is, and you don't really fully appreciate that you have that right to do it. And I think there's other people like me that have that aspect of not feeling like they have the right to do it.
And I also think it's interesting talking to other vocalists, especially women vocalists. A lot of people assume that we don't take a very big part in the songwriting process. And I think that it's just important to acknowledge that it's different for everyone. I have brilliant composer friends where a lot of men assume that a lot of men and people assume that those women didn't actually compose the song from the ground up. So there's like, on the one hand, I think it's important to just acknowledge that the process is different for everyone, and that, composing is a whole other thing. But it's also valuable for me to have owned my own process of like, yes, I can come with a skeletal form and melody and lyrics, and that is enough to collaborate with someone else as well. Like honoring sort of both of those things, honoring what everybody can bring to the table when it comes to creating, period.
I agree. We all have different strengths, and so I need musicians or producers to work with, and I'm fine with that. I don't want to spend hours in a studio listening to this, getting the sound of a kick drum right. Thank you very much. I wanted to also say that as well as coming up with things on the fly, I do have ongoing lists. I use notes in my iPhone. If I think of a title or a theme, you could be anywhere. It could be because of a conversation you had or something on TV or whatever. I just make notes of those as I go along. And similarly, I record melodies if I get little melodies in my head. So I do have sort of notebooks, if you like, of ideas. Because it's good to have those things to draw on and ideas to get you started on days when perhaps you don't feel inspired.
That's interesting. I'm really similar too. Thank goodness for the voice memo app on my phone, because that's like, and I also have another, like, I'll dream of melodies. So in the middle of the night, I'll record those little melodies in my phone, but that's been so helpful. And then on the days when you're sitting in a practice mode, or when you're actually trying to write, to be able to refer to those things that you've written over, and sometimes like one little sentence will come out. So I think constantly kind of just spitting it out, creating, and then going back and seeing, oh, this jumped out at me, or this may work for a melody. That's definitely similar to my process as well.
Well, I'm tipping off in the melody. So just quickly on this one, words first or melody first, or what's kind of the interplay between those two?
Katherine, go first.
I just think every situation is different, really. I mean, you know, if I'm talking about me writing top lines to dance music, I may look for a theme first. Actually, I wouldn't, you know, because it would depend on the music. I react emotionally to the music, but if I can't really think of anything, then I would go to my notes and I would look at some lyrics I've written, or some titles, and I would start singing those with melody and seeing how. Yeah, I just don't think it's just different every time. It's, you know, the important thing is to get the song written. It doesn't really matter how or what comes first. I don't think you should limit your. I'm guessing this is like how, you know, this person wants advice. What should I do? You just do what feels right, what you think's good until it's finished.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And also for me, words have mostly come first, just naturally. And I think that's because I've always been a writer and always loved to, you know, I've kept a journal my whole life. And what I like to do is to allow the words to inform the structure and the shape of the melody by the way that the words sort of fall off your tongue, or the way that there's internal rhymes, things like that. So for me, that's worked the best. But I have friends that are sort of in awe or think that that's absolutely nuts. Like, how do you compose from words when, you know, so some people's process is absolutely chords and melody first. You know, I think that's so fascinating.
I guess it depends what area of music you're working in, because when I'm sent backing tracks, you know, that sort of vibe is already there. So I'm responding to that. So, you know, some lyrical themes might just not make sense over it or whatever. So I guess I've never really thought about it like that. But when I'm working with musicians in a more traditional songwriting setup, then I might come with a lyrical idea or a theme and then build the music around that. But yeah, in dance music, I don't have that opportunity because I'm always reacting to what I'm being sent.
Well, I think, Katherine, that's a great kind of maybe segue into kind of breaking down one of your songs, because I think the song that we're going to focus on for you, you're going to help break down one of your songs. Was this a song where you got the backing track first, or did the ideas come first?
So this song, I was sent a backing track and I wrote the song over the top of it. And for whatever reason, that never came out. So the way that I work in dance music is, if I write the top line, that belongs to me. If it doesn't get used, it reverts to me 100%. So I have a cappellas on file that I've written or haven't been used or whatever. And the Freemasons came to me and said, have you got some a cappellas? You know, at that time, they hadn't done much writing with people, but they're brilliant remixers. They said, you know, we're more remixers, so can you send us some a cappellas? And this was one of the a cappellas that I sent them. Okay. And they picked it and built the track around it.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a clip, basically the intro of that song, first verse into the chorus. We're going to play that, and then we're going to let Katherine take the screen for like 4 or 5 minutes and kind of break down some of what went on in creating that song. So let's listen to it now. Okay, Katherine.
Thanks so much. So so this is When You Touch Me by the Freemasons featuring Katherine Ellis. And as I said, it was actually a fully formed a cappella that I had. And a cappella is just the singing without any music, in case you don't know. And they built the track around it. So the reason I wrote this song was partly because if I'm out in a club with my friends and we're, having fun or whatever, I love those songs where you can strut around and everybody knows the words and you can sort of sing it to your friends. Like, for example, Show Me Love by Robin S. or, I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor, those real kind of feel good kind of things. So I liked the idea of having a song like that my audience could do that with. And it was kind of the way, I suppose I've written it, but the chorus is in a lower vocal range than the verses, which is quite unusual, but I think it works really well because I'm telling the story in the verses and the bridges. And then when I get to the chorus, it's almost quite conspiratorial, because basically the theme of the song is that this person is in love with someone or in lust with somebody, and they kind of know it's wrong, and they know that they kind of shouldn't be doing it because this person probably isn't very nice, or doesn't really sort of love them maybe, or treat them in the way that they would like to be treated. And then we get to the chorus, but when you touch me on my body, I lose every feeling that I used to know. And when you touch me, I'm losing my mind every time. Here I go. So it's that kind of like, so I'm saying, you're boring me now. First you stay, then you go. If I'm kicking you out, it's time you should know. I'm so sick and tired of sitting talking to you. You never tell me anything that I want to know about your life. But when you touch me, blah, blah, blah. And then in the second verse, I open out the theme to include other people by saying, my friends are mystified about what I see in you. But they don't know why I put up with all that you do, brackets, because you love me, right? But baby, when you touch me, blah, blah, blah. And then when we get to the middle eight, function of the middle eight is sort of to say something new or to emphasize a point that perhaps hasn't been said. And when I say middle eight, I think in America you call that the bridge. But anyway, so then we get to this other section, which just happens once. And I'm saying, maybe I could see you just one more time, because like I know that I should be giving this person up. Maybe I could see you just one more time. It's just the way that you love me. Do it to me, baby. Come on, just touch me. And then, it's dance music. So on that bit, there's a big crescendo. It goes, touch me on my. And then we go back to the chorus, because baby, when you touch me on my body. So, yeah, I mean, it's amazing because it really has worked in the way that I wanted it to. And the Freemasons are just such fantastic producers. And it opened up. Well, I went to Australia because of this song. I did 5 tours of Australia, 5 years running, did Mardi Gras. This song, I'm still performing it regularly. Getting paid. So, yeah, it's been, So any questions on that?
It's for me, it's so cool. I mean, in one of your lessons on our platform, you kind of break down a song the same way. I can't even remember if it's the same song or not. I don't remember actually. But I think as not just as an audience member, but maybe as anybody who is interested in hearing a song, it's so great to hear somebody reflect on what they were thinking, why they wrote something, even the context of around that song came to be, because I think it normalizes that it's like, it isn't this necessarily, lightning bolt that comes down that just does this. There is a process and there is a thought. So I really appreciate hearing that. Oh, and now my alarm's going off telling me, yeah, it's not telling me anything important except just trying to keep me on schedule, which we're not doing too bad on. I think we're going to be okay. So, okay, well, let's get back to some of the questions that I had before. So one thing that, and I admit this is something I've heard before. It wasn't something that specifically came from a specific user or anything like that, but it's something that I've thought about before as an audience member, or I've talked to other musicians and songwriters who've had this issue. If you're not connecting with your lyrics or your melody, you just need to just spend more time with it, like as in singing it, or do you need to keep on writing? Is the song not done? So are you not connected with the song yet, or is the song not finished yet if you're not quite connecting with those lyrics and melodies that you're writing?
For me, if I'm writing, I keep writing until I'm satisfied with it.
So it's about the song for you and that connection.
If I'm writing the song, if I'm doing a session and I'm singing someone else's song, then that's different, because my job then is to find a way of connecting with it and sell that person's song. But if I'm writing it, then, you know, as a writer, I've got two different heads. I'm a writer and I'm a singer. Then I need to be happy with the writing of it, you know, and I will keep writing it and tweaking it until I'm happy with it. But then if I've got collaborators, I mean, we tend to work online because I work with people internationally. So they might write back and say, not sure about the verse, or can you do this? So there'll be a process of, you know, us both having to reach that point where we're both really happy with it. But so, yeah, I would keep writing until I, or me and my collaborators, were happy and felt that it was the best it could be.
What about you, Emily?
I love that too. I was thinking, because I was like, ooh, both. As an interpreter, again, like you said, you know, then that's getting inside of what has been written. So maybe that's something I wrote that I think there's a process of becoming more and more comfortable with a melody, and then being like having this beautiful flexibility evolve and even coming at it from different angles. So there is that process of just continuing to sing through something that I wrote. But as I'm writing, it's definitely a process of like finessing, changing. Okay, no, that's not really sitting where I want it to sit, or it's not coming off with the lyric the way that I wanted to. And that is definitely editing, like just endless editing until it feels like, ooh, I'm wearing this well. And then the process of sinking into it begins, you know?
It's interesting. There's another instructor on the platform, Laura Clapp, and I remember probably a decade ago, I remember her saying to me, and I might have this slightly wrong, she said that she didn't fully realize she really loved her song until she performed it. Oof. But knowing that she's quite a perfectionist, I think she really worked on that song a lot until she was very comfortable. But there was an aspect that getting the audience involved changed things. Now, before I say anything else, I have to say there's something that's been bothering me this whole time on this stream, and it's that my head is so much higher than all the other heads, and I just realized I can just lower my chair, and then,
okay, now I gotta go.
More comfortable. Now you're playing with me, but I now feel way more comfortable. I feel at peace now on
That's
this.
Hilarious.
But I think I want to go to this one, because this kind of ties, I think, into this, is how can you find out if the audience is liking the song you're singing? And I'm fine if this is totally practical and obvious. There might be some things that I or other singers have never thought about, but how do you get to know?
I think there's an energy shift in the room, and I'll say that while also cautioning performers to be too tied into what's happening with an audience at any given moment, because the relationship is constantly changing and who knows what's going on in the room. But I do think that when you begin to sort of like, as a performer, it's a really powerful, wonderful feeling when you feel that energy sort of shift towards the moment and inside, when people are inside the song with you. And it's an eye contact thing, it's an interesting, but at the same time, putting 100% of weight on whether someone's giving you eye contact or whether people are fully, who knows where they came in from off the street, or, you know, what's going on. I think that's, I don't prioritize that off the top, like as the most important thing if I have everyone's attention in the room. But yeah, I think there's a response that they're in it with you. There's a responsiveness from an audience that you start to get. And also just physically, like if people are embodying the music, if they're grooving to it, if they're like responding to a little lyric you said, that is my favorite thing. Like watching videos back where someone was like, ooh, or like, you know, yes, what? Like that is my favorite thing ever, because it's like a conversation you're having with people.
Yeah, what you were saying, I mean, having written the song, then you will at some point perform it. So in the case of When You Touch Me, I found it quite difficult to sing live at first, and it's it's actually improved my voice having to
That's
sing
a
it.
serious melody. That's
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah, and at first I thought, oh my God, I've done it again. I've done something in the studio that's really hard. But now it's really easy for me, because I've done it so much. But in the process of, you don't really know what a song can do until you try it out live. So because I have a big gay following worldwide, so I do a lot of prides and stuff. So this song, it's great fun because on the chorus, I'll quite often come down into the audience. And I didn't know I was going to do this when I wrote it. And I'll say, touch me, touch me, feel the healing power of the diva, and it's like a sort of silly, fun thing where I go, everybody, what are you waiting for? An invitation? Touch me, and so that's really good fun. And I think, how can you tell if people are liking it? I mean, I suppose being booked.
Yeah.
So true.
And, and also, but I think as an experienced performer, as long as the music is of a certain standard, there are things that you can do to get the audience involved, to give them permission to enjoy themselves. Raise your hands, everybody say yeah, or coming down into the audience and actually walking around. I will do that if it's a bit slow, or if people aren't coming forward, I will actually go and physically get them, and get so there's that as well. I don't think you can just stand there and just hope for the best. You've actually got to work the crowd. And as you said, Emily, the energy changes and constantly shifts, and it's a new day, it's a new moment, and you've just got to kind of surrender to that moment and go with the energy in the room and somehow try and unify it all.
I'm loving that idea that the song comes alive when you sing it, and it actually becomes something else when you sing it, depending on who's in the room and what's going on. And I think that sort of stage presence and charisma and the skill of reading the room is really important. How much also are you giving of yourself in these original songs? Because that's what people respond to as well. Like, it can be a brilliant song, but if you're sort of placid about it, then nobody's necessarily going to be invited in, like you said, whether it's grabbing them or through your own energy.
I feel really proud of my songs, and I'm really thankful that I've got some songs that I've written that have done well, and that people pay me to perform them, and that people know the words. And I mean, it's amazing. It's what I wanted when I was a child, watching what we had. Top of the Pops was our big music show here. It's a dream come true.
You're getting right into this next question, and maybe I'll have more to add on it. But really, this question, how does it feel when you love singing the melodies you've written and the audience loves it as well? This is really what, if you wanted to inspire those singers that haven't written their own melodies yet, or have, but they're not at that point where they want to share and they just don't know whether they should. I wonder if the feeling of what it likes to do that, those songs that are successful or the songs that maybe weren't successful, but you just love, what's the feeling that keeps you coming back to doing this?
Emily?
Yeah, I remember, I mean, this is going to sound a bit abstract, but I remember it feeling like wind. Like, it just all of a sudden felt like the doors open and there was wind sort of rushing through. And I think that's what really creating something from a little seed and then watching it become something else. It feels just like freedom, And as someone who loves to interpret older songs that have been written and covers and things, I still love that. And it's a different part of my being than when I'm actually have written something that just, and also you were talking about having a gay following, things like that. The first song I wrote it's called Soul Walk, and it's about being in your own body. It's about that our body is just a body and that it's really the soul. And so that message also became I really feel that in my body when I sing it. It feels like, when you write something you're really proud of, like you said, it's almost like leaving a legacy right in that very moment. This is putting my mark on, here in life. And so I think there's something so beautiful about that. And it feels like love. It just feels like love and this sort of big, free, open, wonderful bravery too, because you're really putting something out there that's new.
And also, people don't always, I have my feelings about my songs, but other people have theirs. And I've gay couple friends of mine in Australia, they played When You Touch Me at their wedding. And I was like, you're playing a song that starts with "You're boring me now." I said, what are you doing? I don't understand. They were like, oh, we love it. It's our favorite song. And my song "Dreaming" by the Rough Drivers, which is in Spanish, which incidentally I wrote in Spanish because the producer said, could I write something in Spanish, because he wanted to make the video somewhere hot. And we didn't, I hasten to add. We made it somewhere very not hot and not glamorous. But anyway, that song, DJ Sharon O'Love recently told me that she's got that in her will as the song she wants at her funeral, and went into this thing about why it's the best dance song ever. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow. So I think, you know, you just don't know what's going to happen to your songs. And, you know, I've had people, there was this friend of a friend, again in Australia, and I just thought he didn't like me because he was always kind of weird around me. And then one day we were at a party and we'd had a few drinks and it was just me and him at the bar. And he said to me, you know, I've been really nervous of speaking to you because that song, When You Touch Me, I actually came out to that. And it means so much to me. And so he was quite sort of starstruck by me. And I don't think of myself in that way at all. I don't walk around thinking I'm Katherine Ellis, I've had a record, you know, I just don't. It's the furthest thing from my mind. I don't view myself in that way. So, but yeah, so my default setting was, oh, he's being weird, he doesn't like me. Whereas in fact, he was just really shy to speak to me. So, you know, and having that, you know, for me, mainly in clubs, but being in a club and everybody singing your thing that you wrote in your bedroom, you know, and filming you and just enjoying themselves. I mean, there's really nothing like it.
It is. I think it is inspiring to hear those feelings, because even if somebody's going to write a song and maybe they don't have the opportunity to do that, it's that, you know, we all tend to do our passions because we have dreams and those kind of feelings. And I think certainly, Emily, you mentioned wind, and it made me think of two things that are on my bucket list. One is I want to be on stage with a wind machine at some point blowing at me. Like, I've just always wanted that. The second thing on my bucket list is having long hair. So actually that would be an interesting thing for anyone to see. But
please, yes.
Yeah, so I'll let you know when that opportunity comes up. But okay, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to have Emily perform a song she wrote. And then we're going to come back to questions from actually singers on our platform and also some people online who've had some questions, and get to those. So we're a bit behind, but we are going to have time for questions. So
we're going to speed right through it.
Exactly. So, and so Emily, first of all, I want to tell the audience, we are so thankful for you performing with us. And one of those reasons, knowing, is that something you haven't been able to do as much as you've wanted to of late. We know that you've definitely had some struggles with your voice and your health with your voice. And we'd like to actually mention that at Singdaptive, because we don't feel it's something to hide under the carpet or anything. It's a thing that singers need to know. So I'm going to turn it over for you doing this song just raw in your apartment in New York. But if you want to mention anything about what you went through just quickly, that's fine, because we'd like our audience to know that real singers, professionals making a living doing this, health is an issue. So Emily, take it away.
So first of all, I think it's super cool to have both Katherine and myself talking about songwriting, because Katherine, you know, talking about top lining and playing, I'm imagining stadiums and, you know, people dancing and all that stuff. Like, that's such a cool way to have a career, right? And then there's also songwriting. Like, I'm looking at myself, it's kind of like navel gazing, little singer-songwriter. And I'm picturing myself in some of the New York City's intimate jazz clubs, intimate, you know, music venues, and composing kind of from a different standpoint. And I just think that I like having sort of both of those extremes on there in conversation with each other. And yes, I did have a vocal injury. Over the winter, I was very sick, started with COVID and then a number of infections. And I had a vocal hemorrhage, which led to a polyp, because I didn't even know my singing voice sounded great. It was more in my speaking voice. I found out in March. Long story short, did the best I could to heal that injury naturally, and then needed to have surgery on July 11th. And that's, you know, very intense. I would love to come back and talk to Singdaptive and everybody about what that was like, partly because there is so much stigma and misunderstanding of a vocal injury. People just assume it means you don't know how to sing or, all of that. So whereas really it's that we're athletes as vocalists and singing is hard and our bodies are organic things. So I'd love to talk about this some other time. This tune that I'm going to sing for you is actually about songwriting and being a vocalist in New York City. I wrote it sort of at the peak of this going night and day, performing all the time. I was performing probably 4 to 7 times a week, consistently for like 2 to 3 years, just in the clubs, in the restaurants, at the jazz club, traveling around. And it's called Sweet Little Dream. And it was inspired by a quote that says, "Those who don't sleep confuse reality with dreams." And we'll talk about it afterwards a little bit. This was written with Misha Piatigorsky. And of course, there's a little technical difficulty. I'm sorry. Hold on just one second. I had it queued up. Just one sec. Y'all heard me when we tested this, it was fine. Come on now. I'm so sorry. Just one second. Bluetooth, JBL charge. Let's get it going.
Technology always goes wrong for me, so I get it. You'll get it.
It's coming. Just a second. I don't know what happened. Okay. I'm going to just start it, cue it up a little bit. This was written with my producer and co-writer, Misha Piatigorsky. Here it is. Okay. This is called Sweet Little Dream. A little intro. You can hear it okay. Night is calling. Hear the way she sings to me. It's all or nothing. She's a lover and a thief. Stars are falling. Tell me, is it love or gravity? It pulls us closer. Got a hold on me. I try to find the words, turn it all to poetry. I try to turn this heartache into melody. Oh, love, it takes me so high. It brings me to my knees. I try to let it go, but it won't let me be. This love is fire. Whoa, I feel it moving in me. Sometimes I get so tired, I close my eyes and fall away. Maybe morning, maybe one more melody can keep me believing that all of this was born to be. Said I try to find the words, turn it all to poetry. Gonna turn this heartache into melody. Oh, love, it takes me so high. It brings me to my knees. I tried to let it go, but it won't let me be. This little dream, hey, oh, this sweet little dream. Digging deep for this sweet little dream. Losing so much sleep for this sweet little dream. For this sweet little dream. Pen to paper. Whoa, my will is wearing paper thin. Sometimes I think it's over, but it never is. So I'll settle in, never settling. The heart put into practice is not abandoned, it's discipline. Well, I try to find the words, turn it all to poetry. melody. Oh, love, it takes me so high, brings me to my knees. I try to let it go, but it won't let me be this little dream. Oh, this sweet little dream. Digging deep for this, digging deep for this, digging deep for this. I'm losing so much sleep for this sweet, sweet little dream. That's basically the song, and then this part is a vamp where I get to explore some of the right there where your heart is, some of the ideas that I communicated through the melody. So that's Sweet Little Dream, and I'll do the college fade out.
That was a beautiful college film. Emily, thank you so much for that song. Turn this heartache into melody. I mean, what great medicine anybody could do to probably just deal with life. That's fantastic. It's so great to hear that right out of your apartment there.
Thank you. And it's fun. I sort of thought this will be the perfect song to bring because it is about that process of songwriting and sort of just being out there performing, coming back to the drawing table. What do I want to say? What do I want to communicate? How can I connect with people? How can I make my dream of performing and singing come true? And also because I learned a lot about melody through this, and also going sort of back to Katherine that has like these club bangers, right? There's coming from a jazz and a soul and an R&B place with this song. Melody is kind of conceived differently, right? It's almost like, not necessarily differently, but it's that skeleton, it's the foundation, it's the DNA, but there's also an expectation to explore and play through melody, given whatever you're inspired to do in that moment or say in that moment. Your phrasing may change, etc. So this song has essentially three sections, and that, the one is sort of more conversational than the B, that try to find the words, turn it all to poetry. That is sort of that repetitive thing that people go, oh, I know this part, I felt this part before, which is a good thing in songwriting to have that familiarity. Then that C is sort of a hook or a chorus in a way, and there's two different versions of it. And that is sort of like, ooh, this is a surprise. You think, okay, I got this song figured out, and then there's this little dream. Oh, this sweet little dream. And it's kind of a wonky thing that a vocalist wrote, timing wise. And it sort of surprises people. And I think that I learned a lot because I came to the table to Misha this. He said, I like the A, but we need something to come back to that's just really, really formed, ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, do it again, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Then you get to play with it, because once people recognize it, you state it first. Once people recognize it, then you go da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, right? Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. You can kind of do almost like a call and response with it. So coming from a perspective about lyric writing and melody, thinking about this, I was like, I do collaborate with others. Someone just wrote that in the question. But I think I love the idea of composing as your sort of ground, your base. And then when you're singing, that interpreting melodies can still be free. You want to make sure you know it, A, that you create a strong melody that can be played with, and that C, whatever choices you're making that vary from the melody are inspired ones, like not just to do something. So there we go. I did all right. I tried to do quickly because I know
it was a cool breakdown. That was great. Like it's like yeah. Now I want to go and re-listen to both your songs and then do a whole other live stream to go deeper. But I was just going to check with you, Katherine, on the kind of like that playing with the melody and the melismatic side. To what extent in your songwriting are you thinking of that or working on that while you're writing the song, or for you is that something that then happens in performance?
No, I do think about it but with dance music, what I would tend to do is, as you say, have that really repetitive chorus. It's very, repetition is so important.
Because people want that. Like that's
they really do. And they, and we're not all singers, and people want something simple they can sing along to. Mm-hmm. So what I would probably tend to do is state that melody. So that Baby, when you touch me on my body, I lose every feeling that I used to know. You know, it's just up, 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 down, down, down. It's really easy. But with what I would probably do is add lots of backing vocals, so you get a bed that states the melody, and then later on in the song I would add what we call ad libs, so which is a way of playing with the melody but whilst having that melody already stated so that it's still there.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't, just because of my particular genre that I'm talking about now, I wouldn't do too much of it, because it's not what the people that listen to my music
100%.
really want. And I think less is more almost. So, you know, like I was talking about this song that I spoke about, I've got the, you know, it kind of changes in the middle eight and then it goes into this really long, impressive note, you know, that makes everyone go, wow, you know, so you wouldn't probably have very many of those.
And if you didn't give that to them, they might be like, excuse me.
No, it's got to have a peak. It's got to have, you know, it's got to go somewhere.
It is interesting how the different genre of music, the expectations that you have, like, you know, I'll go, you know, you go see a jazz, you know, set or whatever, and you're really excited to see how somebody explores the melody or that song that they're doing. And it's funny, one of our teenage sons just went to his first big concert in Vancouver last night, went to see The Weeknd, and he played me this video clip of one of his songs, well-known one, I can't remember what it is, and he's just singing it straight. But right when there's this little break, that's where he inserts the, hey, Vancouver, you know, and everyone goes nuts. So like the ad lib is literally just the call out to the audience. So that's what everyone wants in that music. You want that acknowledgement. Okay, we have 8 minutes left. I have not done as a professional job with timing. I have 4 questions I want to try to get to, because 3 of them are from some users in advance. And we also have one that we have some that have been answered as you've gone along from YouTube, but we have one that we want to get answered. So I'm going to fire these up and we'll try to get through them. You can both answer them, or one, we can see how it goes. So this one, I can hum a melody and think it's great. I guess they mean kind of like in their mind or on their own. But then when they record it, I guess listen to it back, they can't even tell the notes that they're singing. Like it's not what they have in their head. Help. Any ideas?
I would literally, and even if you don't play piano for a bit, I would literally sit. It's a painful process probably, but sit and try and find that melody on the piano, note by note. See, and that will also help with the vocal training, right? Like note identification, just to sort of get a ground. If you do play piano at all, then I would try and find a key center and try and go back and sing around that key center, which just give me a triad, like 3 notes, you know, C, E, G. Okay, that's the key of C. How does my melody relate to this? So I think when you're humming into air, like, yeah, you don't necessarily have a center, but if you can sit at a piano and identify note for note what you're trying to sing, that's probably the best way, I would say, to get it to nail down the actual melody.
Okay, let's get to the next one here. So this is one from somebody on the chat today on YouTube. Have any of the writers ever wrote a song and have changed the lyrics after they performed it, or changed the pace of the music after performing? What Katherine, do you want to go first?
Well, with some of my dance tracks, I've made acoustic versions. So this song that I've been using today, When You Touch Me, in the way that a song like I Will Survive is actually, when you look at the lyrics, it's actually quite sad. You know, so is this song. It's about sort of wanting something you know isn't good for you, and it's done as an upbeat song, and it's kind of, you know, almost, it's not a joke, but it's kind of, what am I trying to say here? Like I Will Survive, you know, we all know that song really well, but if you slow it down and sing it as a ballad, it's really sad. And the same thing happens with this. So with this, I changed the key. It's just on guitar. And it just brings out a whole other mood to the lyric, which is really interesting and really, really, you know, great to explore.
I love that too. Tempo definitely changes. It changes how you sing a lyric. It changes how that lyric comes off. So I definitely change, if that's what you mean by pace of the music. Also, depending on the mood, depending on what I did just before, depending on my mood. Sometimes I'll slow it down, or I'll be like, no, actually, I want a bouncier version of that song today. So we have control over that moment. changing the lyrics, yes, I have. Changing lyrics after I've performed it. And part of that is I'm obsessed with like internal rhymes and assonance and things that sound good. Night is calling, hear the way she sings to me, it's all or nothing. So calling and nothing are not real, actual pure rhymes, but they, you know, stars are falling, is it love or gravity? So all those type of things. So sometimes I'll find that something just comes out clumsily. I have some that are quite fast, and I'll just change it. I'll just change to what needs to be, what sort of rolls off the tongue better. And I've also gone back, you know, there's a lyric, I wouldn't necessarily say it's problematic, but for me, it felt it just felt disingenuous. There was a lyric that I had that said, it said wade in the water. It said wade in the water. It was like gonna go, you know, and I just thought, you know, like thinking politically, climate wise, I just was like, you know what? I don't need to sing that lyric. So I did change it. It's recorded as that. And I changed it to something like about being like deep in shallow or something, you know, like I just changed it and it felt better. So I think it's okay also to revisit moments, you know, early moments that maybe don't fit as well. But I also think it's, you know, I like to have something fully formed, obviously, but yeah, little tweaks. I'm not ashamed to make little baby tweaks to either have something flow better or also to resonate deeper with me.
Cool. Here's the next one. Sometimes the words I want in a second verse don't match with the first in terms of number of syllables, so the melody ends up changing. Is this okay?
I have thoughts. Katherine, go ahead.
I don't think it is really, no. I think, you know, I think that the melody, I actually think the melody is more important than the words. The melody is the bit that everybody can sing, no matter what language they speak. That is the melody, is what carries the emotion of the song. And, you know, and I think that that is more important than anything else. And no, you're writing another song. Try harder. You know, actually, you know, write something that does fit, or change your first verse to your second verse if you prefer the way that sounds. That's what I think about that.
Yeah, I think I think there's songs that have more conversational melodies, and that maybe is not as rigid. But if you have a song with a strong melody, and I've learned by being a lyricist to other people's music, I'm not going to change your melody that you wrote. I'm going to write a lyric that suits that and can be communicated through your melody. So I think it is important when you're, you know, as we were just sort of talking about different versions of melody, but yeah, to write for the melody when you have a strong one. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I love. Sorry, Katherine, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember reading that the Bee Gees always wrote the melody first and never compromised the melody for the lyric, which I suppose is why you end up with things like ah.
Yes, right. Okay, I think we have time for one more question, then we can close out, because I think this one could be a fairly quick one, but probably great for both. And in a way, you know, maybe it's a great motivator as well, again, to people who are kind of getting into this. So I am so embarrassed to share what I've written. How do you do it? How do you get over that I'm not ready to share what I'm writing yet?
Read the book, feel the fear, and do it anyway.
What's that title again?
Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's about expanding your comfort zone. I mean, basically, it is embarrassing. And it's, you know, writing a song is a really...
Oh, Katherine. Okay, Katherine, you froze out, so we missed your gem, because I know it was brilliant.
It's an intimate thing, is what you said.
Yeah,
intimate. So what am I saying? I'm saying that, yeah, that it is embarrassing, that it's, you know, we're sharing intimate pieces of our soul, and when, I don't know if I'm sure it is like this for you, Emily, but if I'm sitting in a room with other writers, then somebody will cry. Will share really deep things. You know, you have to be prepared to really open up, and that is not easy. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation, finding supportive co-writers who will support whatever happens in the room, and just, you know, anyway, that's something else. But it is embarrassing, and, you know, but if you don't take that step and just be prepared to feel, I would say, vulnerable rather than embarrassed, then you're just not going to progress.
Yeah, vulnerability and
get out of your own way. Get over yourself.
Yes, I love that. I do love that too. I've learned a lot about myself through this process of asking for collaboration as well, because I used to have it all together and think it had to be fully. And it's like, on a greater scale in life, trusting people in your life to help you through or to listen even. So say you are writing your song entirely, just to listen, sharing that every time you do it, it will get easier. It absolutely will get easier the more you are willing to do it, and sort of take yourself and your ego out of it, in the sense your ego might be telling you it's not good enough, not that it's too good all the time, and just share it for the sake of the music, and it can get better. Somebody might say, hey, do this, or I like that part, or that's another way to actually improve what you're writing.
I've got a 19-year-old son who's a guitarist, and his girlfriend's 19. She's a singer, and they're sort of making their own way. And I've been helping them a lot and coaching and mentoring them. And one thing that I've really drummed into them is your opinion of your music is your opinion. Your opinion of how your gig went is your opinion. So you can tell me you don't think your gig went well, but I'm telling you that I loved it and it was great. And both things can be true at the same time. Don't get in your own way by being negative, because I think it's just insecurity. It's just a way of protecting ourselves. We say, oh, well, that wasn't very good, I'm not going to, but you don't know how other people are going to react. Allow people to react. And not everybody is going to like what you do. That's why we have different types of music.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit the primary school sharing idea. It's not about what you share, it's the actual sharing that matters. So so I think what I'm hearing from both of you is, to anybody who's out there has written before and is not doing it now, or wants to get into it, or is in it and hasn't told anybody yet, it's just the sharing it that's important. It's not the important of what your opinion or even somebody else's opinion about it is. That sharing is an important step to progress that music, but also to help other people just learn from what you've written. So Emily and Katherine, we're out of time. We're actually over this.
Say something. I'm
oh
sorry.
My goodness. I'm not going to stop you. I'm going to let you say it.
Really vitally important part of my development was open mic nights, which I did for years in my early 20s. Get out to open mic nights, practice your songs, do a half finished song and then see how it goes and work on it. You'll meet people who are in the same level as you. You'll work together. You'll support each other. Get out there, get involved. And if there isn't one where you live, start one.
Amen.
I love it. Maybe Singdaptive will start an open mic night virtual in the future. We'll have you there. But thank you so much to both of you for today. It was great. I'm so glad we went over, because it needed it. I appreciate the songs you both shared, and I really feel I learned a lot, and I'm sure a lot of the singers on the platform have learned a lot and will learn a lot as they watch this in future. So thank you so much, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Singdaptive. Thanks to everybody who watched. Such a pleasure to meet you, Katherine.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thank you.